I've had people reach out to me that are, and I know you work with older guys too, but I've had people reach out to me because I'm talking about arm injuries that they're like, yeah, you guys think that you're going to blow out your arm at 16 and you're going to get Tommy John and you're going to be back on it. It's like, I've blown out my arm when I was younger, and then I still have like almost PTSD about it, and they're like 45 years old talking to me. And so I'm sure you've dealt with that where guys have like shoulder injuries or elbow injuries when they're younger, and it's just something that's chronic that, they come to you and they've already had those injuries a bunch of times when they're in their 40s or later, and it's just something they deal with. So what are your thoughts on that, and like what's that like for someone who's older?
So we're talking about like a 40-year-old.
Yeah,
Uh,
like how can that be like something that's chronic when you're like younger and it's like and then when you're older it's like something that's like always an issue?
oh yeah, certainly it definitely could be. That's why we're trying to avoid these catastrophic injuries at a young age. I mean,
Yeah,
you start to develop arthritis in that joint, and arthritis just leads you down a bad path where you're looking at total joint replacements. You know,
yeah,
later years in life, but before that, we're looking at tendon failures, rotator cuff repairs. If we're talking about the shoulder specifically, arthroscopic cleanups, debridement, surgery. It can get ugly. So that's why it's really important to kind of get ahead of the curve and make sure you're preserving your arm, taking care of your arm, doing the right steps. Making sure you have the right kinematics or the right pitching mechanics. You're doing the proper arm care routines, and then you're not trying to throw fastballs day in and day out. Trying to max out your velocity with radar guns every single time that you pitch bullpens and when you throw in a game.
for sure. Yeah, we had a guy famously, he had labrum surgery and then he could only throw 65. He was in high school like junior year and then he learned the knuckleball, got into college because of it. So what's like the most common injuries? Like labrum surgery, like how does that happen? What's the severity of that? I know Tommy John's common. Like what would you say are like the most common things you see?
Slap tears. What we're talking about, shoulder specific.
Just anything.
Slap tears.
A slap tear.
What's a slap tear?
Yeah.
Slap tear is so SLAP is an acronym for superior labral anterior posterior. So basically, it runs from the front of your shoulder to the back of your shoulder, basically along the top. And the bicep tendon, this bi means two, right? So the bicep tendon, the short head runs to the coracoid process. It's the front part of your shoulder. It's actually part of your scapula, your shoulder blade. The long head of the bicep actually runs into the joint of the glenoid, the ball and socket joint, and connects to the labrum. So the slap tear there's many variations of slap tears, grade one, grade two, grade three, all the way into like grade eight or type eight, type nine, I should say, where some of them might potentially extend into the bicep tendon, bucket handle tears, all sorts of different types of slap tears. Without getting too technical, but those things can be season-ending injuries for baseball players. They can be detrimental to their career.
Dude, I wonder if I had a slap tear because basically I always talked about it as like bicep tendonitis, kind of like right here. And it got so bad a few times. Like I said, the first time was like in college, it would get so bad that I could barely like lift my arm to here and I could only throw like, 40 feet. And for a long time, I never was able to get my arm, all the way up. And basically, the only thing that helped it was just like taking kind of a year off, after I finished playing.
Get an
Maybe
MRI on that? Did you ever get it
never,
looked at, or
never an MRI, never got it looked at, just went to the knuckleball, man. That's why I'm like all about the knuckleball because it saved me, you know what I mean?
revitalize your career, save your career?
Yeah, so when you find something that saved you, that's why you're like, preaching it. But I wonder if that's what it was because it was for sure. I always said bicep tendonitis, but it wasn't just like, oh, it's a little bit sore. It was like debilitating.
Well,
Kind
you could certainly develop a bicipital tendonitis from weakness in the back part of your shoulder. We call it the posterior aspect of your shoulder, the back. And that's where all the rotator cuff muscles are, and at least where they start from, they originate from the different areas of the shoulder blade and the middle lower trapezius muscle, all those scapular stabilizing muscles. If those are weak, it's going to put more stress on your bicep, especially if you're throwing really hard. So you could certainly develop a bicipital tendonitis, but that tendonitis could certainly manifest and turn into a slap tear. and that's very common for pitchers.
Yeah, what's a labrum like surgery? Like what's the what's the labrum? How does that work?
The labrum is like a fibrous ring of cartilage that, if this is the socket of your joint, of your ball and socket joint, it's on the peripheral on the outside of it. The labrum's like almost like acts as like a suction cup that keeps the humerus inside of the socket a little bit better. So when you disrupt or tear the labrum, you're kind of ruining some of the suction in that area, and you're creating a little more instability of the shoulder.
Dang. Yeah, man. It's crazy. And so I mean, yeah, my personal experience is like I was, thrown up to 96 and then just that max effort just was not gonna cut it. So the knuckleball saved me and that's why I'm preaching it. And this is good. I mean, I feel like we could just talk for hours on this. Maybe we'll have to do something like this again. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching and learning a lot. I have a lot of, parents and kids that are like, man, this stuff is like, saving me. So, Keith Levinson, I know we might have people even reaching out. Like, if people want to learn more about this stuff on your page, where could they find you? And like what kind of stuff would you say? Like, hey, if you have an issue, like reach out or anything like that.
Yeah, so you could totally locate me on Instagram at shoulder_rebuild. That's my page, and my main focus and mission on Instagram has been to help individuals with shoulder pain or shoulder issues, or even preemptively try to avoid catastrophic things like we've talked about just before, to avoid injuries or time off from baseball or time on the DL, or even surgery for that matter, to do things from like a prophylactic standpoint, prevent injuries from happening. So you can find me on there, and I have a whole slew of videos and information and content on there. And feel free to DM me if you're looking for more information.
Yeah, this has been awesome. And so, yeah, guys, DM, either of us about information because we're both in the business of trying to help you guys, navigate your guys' career. And then we'll do more stuff. Yeah, ask questions. And if there's stuff that you guys want to know, we can, do something, more like I'm learning a lot. And this helps me a ton with being able to help you guys. But I'm learning a ton about this stuff and we want to help. That's why we're doing this stuff. We want to help you guys have an amazing career because I mean sports is like one of the most important things in a young person's life. And honestly, even when you get older, we still want to be playing. And if you have a healthy shoulder and a healthy body, you can play sports your whole life. I have guys in my program that are 60 years old, and so it's a pretty amazing thing to see when people are able to navigate this without injuries. I think chronic pain and injuries is one of the worst things that can happen in all of life, honestly. So that's why we're doing this. And so,
What's the
Keith,
beauty of sports, in your opinion, other than performing at a high level, which is, a lot of people like to do that, like to be good at their sport, perform at a high level. But in my opinion, sports is camaraderie, right? Like you're developing relationships and rapport with individuals, and meaningful relationships and memories. So without staying healthy, or having something happen to you from an injury standpoint, you can't do those things. You can't enjoy time with your friends, and have those memories and have those experiences. So these things are super important, and they usually go overlooked, which is sad. But it's always like, an ounce. What's the saying? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So there's only a little bit that you have to do, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, to make sure that you're staying healthy, you're staying on the field. And ironically enough, it's going to help you with your performance, and get you playing better.
100%. And that's why we're so thankful for the work you're doing. I know with the injury epidemic, you're busy with all this stuff going on. And I know I've heard from other guys in the same field that it's like, man, it's like we're busy, but it's almost like with these young athletes, it doesn't matter like how busy we are. We hate to see 12-year-olds coming in with these kind of crazy injuries, and so we're trying to raise awareness. And I mean, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying about the beauty of sports. It's like you look, most of us are not going to play 20 years in the big leagues and make hundreds of millions of dollars, most of us are going to play and we want to make, memories. And honestly, I have guys in my, like I said, 6 years old. I have a guy that he is runs the Sandlot leagues, which are like, men's leagues that are like spanning all over the country, I think expanding all over the world. And it's where guys get out there and they play ball and like, kind of just like old school baseball, having fun. And if you can't, if your body is broken down, you only got one body, right? So if it's kind of a tragic thing, and so I think there's really nothing more important than taking care of your body, being as healthy as possible. And I honestly tell kids, it's like, man, we got all this like technology coming, all this AI coming. Um, the body is going to be more important in the future than anything because we're going to value real world personal connections more than ever in the future. And so that's why this is, so critical to both of us is making sure you guys are healthy and able to enjoy sports as long as possible.
Amen. 100%. If I could just leave on a note, just providing some statistical information, I think that'd be good for the listeners the viewers to hear.
Mm.
So, these are risk factors for shoulder and elbow injuries in adolescent baseball players, and a lot of these statistics are pretty alarming, right? The first one is if you're averaging greater than 80 pitches per game, you're 4 times more likely to experience injury. If you're pitching competitively for greater than 8 months out of the year, you're 5 times more likely to experience an injury. If you're throwing at a velocity greater than 85 miles per hour, you're 2.6 times more likely to experience an injury. If you're pitching on consecutive days, you're more than 2.5 times a greater risk of experiencing arm pain or an injury. And youth pitchers who threw sliders are 86% more likely to experience elbow pain than those who did not. And the big mega factor here is pitching on a regular basis with a fatigued arm. You are 36, I repeat, 36 times more likely to have an injury and potentially need season-ending surgery. So I just wanted to leave the viewers with those stats because they can be pretty eye-opening.
It's powerful stuff, man. And yeah, no, I hope a lot of people benefit from this. And like we're saying, I guess reach out any questions. But this has been super fun and super educational for me. And so yeah, reach out, and we'll be probably doing more of this type of stuff. And we want to help you guys as much as we can. So thank you, Keith. This was amazing.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely, man. All right.